Hey, I'm Mark. Welcome to the garage. Today we're going to change the oil on a third generation 2006 Dodge Ram 1500. Use this information at your own risk. I assume no liability. One thing before we get started working underneath the truck is we want to put a chalk in the back of the wheels so that they don't roll back, even though I do have it in gear and I have the emergency brake on. First thing I want to do is I want to take a drive for about 15-20 minutes, get the engine and the oil nice and warm so it flows out easier. Second thing I want to do is I want to take off the fill cap so that the oil will drain more easily. Now I just pre-loosened it, but in reality you're probably going to need some pliers to kind of torque it loose. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our 16 millimeter socket and we're going to loosen the oil drain plug. And the drain plug is under here. So actually giving me the camera. So the drain plug, if I go from the driver's seat down to where the door hinge is, and just behind the back of the front wheel, all right, and here's my control arm. If you follow my my socket, and you'll see underneath the oil pan, right over there, you get a long shot, that is my drain plug for my oil. Now before I actually start loosening this, I like to put a thicker glove on because the engine oil is warm or hot in some cases, and just the regular rubber gloves are gonna be kind of sensitive. So I'll loosen this up, and I know from prior changes that going forward it's not a very sticky plug, so all I gotta do is, for the remaining way, is just hand loosen it. Now, if you're not familiar with doing this process for any kind of fluid changes, I would recommend not getting this open pan. I like it because it flows faster, there's no limitation, but you can get a pan that that has a surface and it only has one single drain hole in it, and that way if you drop your plug from, it's hot or something, you drop your plug, it will catch the plug and you won't have to fish through all that oil to get to your plug. So we're going to let that oil drain for a few minutes until it gets down to a drip. So we're finished draining the oil here. I'm just going to put this back, the drain plug. And I know that some people change the washer out each and every time. You can. I do it maybe every other time. And I'll make sure I can hand tighten it first because I do not want to take a chance in stripping the threading on this oil pan, because now you're replacing the bottom piece of the oil pan, and that's a whole nother job. So we'll get this cinched up here, and I just kind of hand tighten it, or just kind of feel it by hand, like so. And I'm on top of my car enough to know if I get an oil leak, and then I can tighten it up a little further. The oil filter on this, if you're looking at the front of the truck and you go down, okay, this is the fan, all right, and go ahead and give me the camera. You're gonna go down and then to the right, slightly to the right behind this fan, and there's your filter. Now you're going to need a stubby extension, and I like to use, unless you're doing it by hand, but I like to use the filter wrench. You'll need a stubby extension, and you'll get to it by going underneath this cross member and up through the back here. And then you can, let's see if I can do this in one hand, and then you can twist her loose. I typically like having a funnel handy, but I don't seem to have one today. So I'm just gonna make a funnel. Just help me get that oil in there. And so I see roughly the diameter of the oil fill hole, roughly how much. And don't use this with a regular piece of paper, because then it's gonna fray and get pieces of paper possibly into your engine. But with a thicker mailer like this, I've done this many times, never had a problem. Again, use this method at your own risk, obviously. I also like to take out the oil dipstick, the oil measuring dipstick, because it just kind of gets in the way. So I kind of put it off to the side here, and then I'll have my funnel in here to dump my oil, and now it gives me a little bit more leeway when I'm pouring my oil. And the handy thing about this car, this truck I should say, is that it takes exactly 5 quarts of 5W30. And what I do with both the oil and the filter is I use an advanced full synthetic that allows you many miles. So they say 15,000 miles, I'll change it at 10, but at least I'm not changing it every 3,000 miles. You know, it's not a hard job to do, as you've seen. However, if you're constantly having to do it because you're driving a lot, it's just that much more effort. So I'll get this in here. I'm gonna try my best to aim it right the first time. No guarantees. Actually, come over this way, it's easier. I'm gonna go up this side. Okay, so I'll kind of hold this in place. I'll try to get it in that first pour, and once I start getting it in there, then we're good. And I'm just gonna pour in all 5 quarts. Easy peasy. All right, so now we're just gonna dump our old fluid into a waste can. And you can take this old oil, old fluid can to any auto parts store like Advance or AutoZone, and they have a big vat in the back where they allow you to just dump all your old fluid out in. Got our 5 quarts of oil back in here, and we've got our oil cap back on. Obviously all the bolts are tightened below, and I'm just gonna reinsert our dipstick. And at this point we can recheck our oil level to make sure it's between the 2 lines, which it very well should be. As you can see, between the 2 lines. And that is how to change the oil in a Dodge Ram 1500, 3rd generation, 2006.